It's Wednesday, and that can only mean one thing, John. It's Movie Burner News. And our headline this week is Apple taps A24 or A24 to produce a slate of films, John. But before we get into that, I'd just like to pay a little bit of respect to the great man created basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Comics, Mr. Stan Lee, who sadly passed away last week, John, on the 12th of November. We'd already did our recordings for last week's show when this news hit, so we didn't really have a chance to pay tribute to the great man. What's your recollections? What's your early introductions to comic books, thanks to the likes of Stan Lee and obviously the likes of Jack Kirby as well, John?
Yeah, well, I've said it before, Stephen. I wasn't a huge comic book reader when I was younger. I started to also get into it now in my 20s, late 20s. I'm clinging on to my 20s. So I'm starting to appreciate more and more what this great man actually brought to the world. All these colourful characters and the amazing worlds. Just the imagination of the man, him and Jack Kirby, what they managed to put together. Absolutely astonishing. To me, he's one of the greatest figures of the 20th century. Just what he accomplished, his life's work, the amount of people he inspired to go into writing, to go into maybe doing film and stuff like that. Just the amount of lives the man's touched. He's also inspired a whole host of children to then grow up and be better than what they may otherwise have been without his influence. But my biggest takeaway from this man's death is just hearing his early views on politics and just characters in general, the creation of Spider-Man, his thoughts behind it, how he was criticised and ridiculed for creating a character that could climb walls. I mean, this will never sell, it's absolutely ridiculous and stuff like that. And I'm going on to say, well, I'm going to make him a teenager with troubles so that people of a similar age can connect to him, and you can see on graphic novel form that this is a character that's relatable to you. He's going through problems, and that to me is just the thing that stands out. The humanity of the man, his ability to just connect with people across a whole range of demographics and ethnicities, and just get into their souls and inspire them to be something different. It was much like Leonard Nimoy a couple of years ago. I know it's not the same, but just the inspiration that man had on people's lives, it just shows you what you can do if one person can better so many other people's lives, individual lives, and push them on to maybe being better than what they would have been without his influence. And just again, my first brushes with comics and just the characters in general would have been the cartoons early on in the 90s. When I was growing up, I was influenced with also the early cartoons involving also the Marvel characters and DC as well. The early Spider-Man films involving Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire. I never really get involved with that horrendous Captain America film from the early 90s. And also this Fantastic Four films and stuff like that. Just the films from the early 2000s. That was my first brush with the cinematic side of Marvel and just the brilliance of the storytelling and the colourful characters. So it's a tremendous loss, but the guy had an incredible life. He's touched a whole host of people from a whole host of backgrounds, and you just see the outpouring of love that he's had since his death. It's incredible. And obviously, I'm sadly not going to get to see those amazing cameos that he's been doing for nigh on 20 years now, popping up in a whole host of cameos in the MCU films and in just about every other comic book film that he formed.
Listen, John, we'll go into the cameos in a little while, because we do have an article that relates to that, and it's to do with Sam Raimi as well. But you're right, my introduction to comic book characters was Spider-Man. It was the television series, actually, the Nicholas Hammond 1970s. There was a TV movie out first. It had a limited cinematic release as well in the the late 70s, and that was my first movie I saw in the cinema. But you're right, I mean, the man's he's left such a mark on Hollywood, and the whole creation of the MCU is thanks to Stan Lee, as far as I'm concerned. If you don't have his characters and his storylines, along with Jack Kirby as well, I think it's fair to say, you don't have an MCU. So we're eternally grateful for the man's work. And you're right, from his political stance as well, I was very impressed with a lot of his views. I don't really want to get into this and jump in my soapbox, but some of these articles during, I think it may be when he was serving with his country, he wrote a lot of articles in probably local newspapers, etc. And I did share a lot of his opinions on his politics, but we're going to move on, John. What a life this man led. 95 when he passed away. I think he did it all. He's going to be sadly missed. And
not by Bill Maher.
No, it's very sad to see. you know, there's a bit of humour in his comments, and there's been a few that have come out, not attacking Stan Lee as such, but more the ones that have had selfies, the Hollywood people that have had selfies with Stan Lee over the years, more or less using the man's death to promote themselves. Whether or not that's the case, you're never really going to be able to prove, but 95 years old when he passed away. What a life, and he will be remembered as one of the greats.
And again, Stephen, I was talking about demographics and the whole range of people he connected with. You've got people who come from obviously the geeky culture.
Yeah.
And then we've got an NFL player, Mohamed Sanu. He's got his own cleats, his boots with Stan Lee. He's got a honorary pair showing his face, Stan Lee 1922 to 2018. This is an athlete in the NFL, so that just shows you the wide range of people this man influenced and connected with in some small way or bigger way, and he's an incredible figure.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go to auction for some charity at some point as well, John, from Mohamed Sanu, but we'll see. We're going to move on though, John, to our first article. It was a headline at the introduction of the show, and it is Apple taps A24 to produce a slate of films. This is Apple. We talked about this, I think, not in depth, because they have got now a production company involved. I think it's an indie studio.
Yeah, it's A24,
in regards to producing their own films. We did talk about this probably back in the podcast days, if I'm not mistaken. It was something that we said that all the sort of multi-billion corporations are going to be tapping into very shortly anyway, the likes of Apple. We're now seeing it with Disney with their announcement. Obviously Netflix has got a head start on their streaming service with a lot of them. It's certainly improved over the years as well, but this news coming in from Apple, I think it's coming in from Variety, and basically what the article is saying is that this partnership they have with A24 are going to be delving more into making their own shows and movies.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this back in the Wavy Burner podcast days, Stephen. I think it was surrounding the Fox-Disney merger.
Yes,
and also the fact they were going to be creating their own streaming service and getting into the whole TV show and just that subcategory of the entertainment industry, which is something we're seeing growing more and more with Netflix, and Amazon have done it. They're going to be taking on Hulu, I believe, from the Fox merger as well. It's going to, I think we spoke about this last week, it's a triumvirate of sort of things they're going to be doing. ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu, and they're going to be doing a whole host of things across those three platforms. Netflix has got their own platform, which is incredibly successful. Amazon and now Apple are looking to delve into this as well, get their finger in the pie as well. And as you did say, I don't know if it's an indie, what is an indie studio? It's an Oscar-winning indie studio, A24. They produced a whole host of films, the likes of Moonlight, Ex Machina, Room, The Witch. So incredible back catalogue of films this company have been involved in, this studio have been involved in. So you can't really pick a better studio to collaborate with in terms of trying to get in and get your foot in the door in the movie industry.
Yeah.
As we do know, they've already got films available on the platform. You can purchase or rent films on Apple.
Yeah.
But this is their own developed films that they're going to be putting out under the Apple brand, I presume. And it's very interesting because obviously Apple have, I think, I don't know if they are, but they were at one point this year $1 trillion company alongside Amazon. So they're incredibly wealthy. So they have got the financial power, put all the creative juices and whatnot into this and make it a real success. And it's going to be intriguing to see this battle between Amazon, Netflix, Disney and now Apple.
Yeah.
It's going to be a four-way battle for obviously supremacy in the TV market, and as we're going to get into it in another topic later on in the show, it's just again showing you the development and just how the industry's transforming. It's going more into TV. We've said it for years now, it's a golden era for TV, but I think this golden era is now, it's stepping away from being a golden era and just into the norm. This is almost, it's battling toe to toe with movies now. Yeah,
John, I think the audience are more conditioned now for this sort of platform. As you said, Netflix have had a head start. They've had a good decade start on most of the. But you're right. This I don't think Apple could have picked a better company to work alongside. When you look at that CV, the likes of Moonlight, Room, The Witch, and Ex Machina. One of my favourite films, Ex Machina. I thought it was an outstanding independent film starring Oscar Isaac. And it's interesting to see how this is going to develop. It's going to be very early days for Apple. I don't know how they're going to pitch this in regards to their own original content, whether they'll bill it like that, like Netflix do with their original content. I think they will, and I think they've certainly got the resources to to be able to create films from scratch as well. It's going to be very interesting, as you said, with the likes of Amazon already a head start, certainly in more in the television production from Amazon. Some great series on Prime, and Disney, they've already got so much in their locker, to just fire out right away. We know Disney's going to be probably the front runner when these things are all up and running, competing with each other. We know that because they're probably the biggest player in the game. But it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm looking forward to it because I think that Apple, as far as hardware goes, I can't see any fault with them. Most of my products are Apple. It's going to be very interesting to see how they produce these films, and whether or not as well they're going to just be exclusive to Apple devices, because as we know that Apple are very much create a lot of their technology that's only suited for their products, and I can understand it. It makes good business in some sense. In other ways, it's a kind of hindrance. It could put a lot of people off as well. You see it with a lot of the software as well that's not compatible in any other sort of format, and some formats that aren't compatible with Apple, and I think they lose out in a way with that business sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years we'll see the likes of Facebook doing this model as well.
Well, they do say that at the bottom of this article, that the world of streaming is becoming crowded. Netflix and Amazon have made big investments in original content, obviously. Yeah. Netflix being the primary one that I think of right away. But obviously Amazon as well with some of their TV shows. But they're saying that Disney and also Warner Media are launching streaming services. I actually forgot about Warner Media doing their own one. And it's creating something of a land grab mentality when it comes to hoovering up and locking up top talent. So we spoke about this before as well, Stephen. Netflix trying to nab a lot of people from Disney, top producers and up-and-coming talents. You're going to see more and more of this. They say here that this deal actually, with A24, they have actually got a deal as well with Amazon. So it's not going to be an exclusive deal between the Apple and them. They are going to be free to continue putting out their own original content and maybe doing stuff for Amazon as well. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that works. You'd have to think then that they're probably going to have to try and get an exclusive deal with maybe another studio, and then also they've got their own unique content getting brought out under this name. I always think back to the likes of Microsoft, the way they hoover up gaming studios, the likes of Rare and stuff like that. They take all the top talent from other companies that may be working for the likes of Nintendo, putting stuff out for Sony. They hoover up all the top producers, developers and stuff like that, and then fire it out under their own name, the unique Microsoft Studios name. So it's much the same with this. This would be a start, working with this award-winning independent studio, but then maybe trying to get their fingers in other pies and maybe starting up their own studio, Stephen, Apple Studio. There's a bit of a dodgy history with Apple. Companies named Apple going off and doing their own things. Look at the Beatles back in the 1960s with Apple Records. Completely different company, but it was a bit of a disaster. This is not going to happen with Apple, man. Apple are a professional outfit,
Yeah, maybe they can call it Zapple.
Zapple, yeah.
I think that's already been taken by Mr. Lennon, but yeah, John, we're going to stay on the streaming topic at the moment. This was something else that came in /film.com. They certainly did cover it in regards to Netflix and their Oscar race plans are dividing members of the Academy. This was another topic that we did sort of scratch the surface on a few months ago with the Cannes Film Festival. There was a lot of discontent from both sides of the fence, if you like. Certainly, I think possibly, I don't like to say we were sitting on the fence, but we certainly did understand from both sides. And this is, I think it was coming in from Hollywood Reporter. They were looking at this battle to, for Netflix to join the Oscar race. And read this article and we can see it from both sides in regards to the traditionalists want to cling on to the old traditions of how films are elected onto the nomination and their categories and stuff like that, but also we're in a changing world now. We just touched on this with the new Apple streaming service that's going to come in the near future. It seems to be just the way of the world where I know that Netflix, in regards to some of their films, certainly in the case of this movie Roma, which has been given a limited theatrical run, certainly that seems to be their model and getting their fingers in the pie, if you like, to really have a chance of any Oscar noms. But we can see it from the other point of view as well in regards to the traditionalists. They think that companies such as Netflix. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, this isn't actually part of any quotes, but they certainly are looking for the best of both worlds, the likes of Netflix, where they don't have to declare their box office numbers and things like that. But I don't think that's going to really make a dent anyway. I think if a film's good enough, regardless of where it's coming from, it certainly will have a chance of being nominated anyway. If the film's absolute mince, then it's not going to stand a chance, regardless if it comes from Netflix or anywhere. The other thing that a lot of people have picked up on as well, that it's not any different to the traditional way of getting a film nominated in regards to the way that films are marketed and the timing and scheduling of films releases. You certainly see it. It's normally this time of year you start to see these filter in between October time through to maybe January. You see a lot of big films coming out. Certainly saw it last year. We covered the Oscars last year on the podcast as well. Just you've got your pick of all the best films that are coming out at that time of the year, and we certainly covered a lot of those films. I think we covered most of them actually. There wasn't very many that we left behind, and a lot of people see that argument as well. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I can see both sides, as I did in the Cannes Film Festival debate or argument or rift. Obviously in that case it was a clash of culture in France. They've got their own way of doing things. They like people to go out and celebrate cinema in its purest form, which is to go to a big screen and celebrate it in a communal style with a whole host of people. That's the way they celebrate film. They're very particular about film over there, and hats off to them for that. Netflix, on the other hand, are this new age of entertainment, consuming it through any platform you want, be it on an iPad, on a TV in your house, or indeed on a bigger screen, because we've seen it recently, Steve, and they're starting to release more and more films in the big screen, or on the big screen. We've seen it with the 22 July film, the one about the Oslo bombing, the Paul Greengrass release. And obviously this Roma film by Alfonso Cuarón, that was always going to get a release in the theatres. As they start to attract bigger and more established directors, these guys are not going to be happy with just having a straight to streaming film. As big a reach as Netflix now has with all its subscriber base, they're still going to want to have their films shown in big film festivals like Cannes, like the Toronto Film Festival. They're going to want to see it have a theatrical release of some kind, so it can be appreciated by maybe a different kind of audience, the ones that maybe boo Netflix films at Cannes because they don't like this change in direction that we're seeing with the entertainment industry, with streaming services starting to dominate, which again is fine. Everyone's got their own opinion, that's fine, you're entitled to it. I can see both. I like consuming it on an iPad at times, other times I love going to the cinema. It's a totally different experience. But as they start to get more and more established guys like Alfonso Cuarón on board doing films for their streaming service, they're going to want to go out and target the traditionalists who like to go and watch it in the cinema. And obviously with that you then get award nominations. But it's just a shame the likes of that other film, I can't remember, they done a remake of a classic film that never got a chance to screen at Cannes, and it was a contender for the one of the prestigious awards at that festival. It never get allowed to obviously show there in competition because of that rift. But it's just a shame that that's continuing to be a divide. But I can understand culturally in France why that never happened. But this, I can see both sides of the argument again. You've got the traditionalists saying they're going to fudge the box office numbers, they're getting their cake and they're eating it. They're forewalling it, as they call it, where they essentially release this film or rent it out to theatres. They don't give them any cuts, therefore you get to fudge the box office numbers. You can say, well, it was a big success, we got all these people indoors to watch the film, and then they don't really release any of the figures. Whereas the other films that are in contention for awards during the award season can come in, release it in a theatre, and then they have to reveal the actual hard numbers involved. So I can see both arguments, but I can also see Netflix's argument. They've got high calibre directors like Paul Greengrass, Alfonso Cuarón, attracted to their service, or attracted to their studio. They're releasing films like this. By all accounts, Roma's going to be one of the most outstanding films this year. So it's only fitting it gets a theatrical release, and it's only fitting that it then becomes eligible for awards and nominations like at the Academy Awards. And if these people who are part of the Academy don't want to vote for it because they're snobbish gits who don't agree with Netflix moseying on in and having their cake and eat it, then that's more a shame and more reflective of their cutting their nose off to spite their face attitudes, because it should always be judged on a film's artistic value. It shouldn't be judged on all of the superfluous crap going on round about it. Take it purely from what Alfonso Cuarón's managed to create on the screen, and only that.
Yeah. The end game, John, though, is that things are going to change, whether they like it or not, these traditionalists. I totally get where they're coming from. I'm not disagreeing with anything that's said in that article, because I'm a bit traditionalist myself, but things are changing. This is the beginning of it. Netflix are, certainly get ahead, but when the likes of Disney start producing their streaming content, they might take that template as well, where they're going to have limited cinema releases. Certainly Apple, when they produce their own content as well, and I think it's going to add a lot of pressure to the way the Oscars are handled.
Well, we've already seen it, Stephen, as well, with the popular vote thing, the award that getting brought out and then them rescinding it.
Yeah.
So they're always at odds with these traditional sides of the thing. They're trying to modernise it for a new audience, a new generation, and then they're getting fighting and obviously conflict from the other side. So
it's like most things, though. If things don't change, they will stay as they are. We're going to move on, though, John, to this topic. We touched on it when we were talking about Stan Lee just at the start of the show. This is something coming in from the playlist.net. Sam Raimi talks his 1991 Thor pitch and why he thought adding a Stan Lee cameo to Spider-Man was absurd. I actually watched Spider-Man, that first 2002 release from Sam Raimi. I think it was on Sky Movies over the weekend, and I think they were showing all the Spider-Man films, the Amazing Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire ones, the Andrew Garfield, and it was a lead up to Homecoming on Sky Movies. I certainly caught that one, 2002 release. Still, I don't know if it's my favourite one. I certainly liked the introduction to Spider-Man again into the cinematic world. As I recall, Stan Lee had a little cameo where he pulled a little girl away from the fallen debris. I think it was the Green Goblin was attacking the sort of Times Square. And that was it. I don't think he had a speaking part, from what I recall. It was very brief, but when you think back, I think he had a few cameos in the likes of The Incredible Hulk, television series that is, things like that. It certainly was something that was done prior, but it's certainly something that's became a bit of a tradition. Sadly, with Stan Lee passing, we're only going to see him possibly crop up in another 2 or 3 MCU films, maybe some of the X-Men films that are upcoming as well. It remains to be seen, but it's certainly something that's not going to be around forever. But I think it was a good move on the studio's part. I can't remember the chap's name who was with Marvel at the time.
I believe it was Avi Arad.
Yeah, he was a Marvel head at the time back in 1999 when Sam Raimi got the job for Spider-Man, which came out 3 years later. It's interesting to see in this article as well, John, that Sam Raimi is talking about how he I think he might have got his pitch approved, I'm not sure, for a Thor release back in 1991. This was an era, as we've talked about, John. I didn't even know there was a Fantastic Four film that came out in 1994. Certainly knew about the 1990 Captain America release through Chris Stuckman's
absolute destruction
Hilariosity review, which is one of my favourite YouTube clips. I think he absolutely nailed the film.
All those cuts.
Yeah, I think any superhero film around about that time was just. I don't think the studios were putting enough money into these productions at the time. Certainly Superman 4, which was the late 80s, was one of the biggest disasters for comic book, certainly for Christopher Reeve's Superman anyway. It was a black mark on his, otherwise
exemplary
memory of playing Clark Kent as Superman. Certainly the Captain America 1990 film is should be I think that should be put into hell for eternity and never to be released again. Certainly in there with Star Wars Holiday Special. It should be burned and never been re-released.
You tell me you don't like clawing Nuclear Man in space, cutting Stephen and moving the moon and putting a big net around all the nuclear weapons and thrusting them into the sun. You don't like that? Come on.
I went to the cinema to see it, John, so that's enough said. But Captain America 1990 actually came out in Blu-ray as well, so it's not going to go away anytime soon. Fantastic Four 1994, didn't know about. This Thor idea, I think it was probably for the best that this was never released, because I think that character, along with Aquaman, wasn't really one of my favourite comic book characters at the time. Certainly with Aquaman, he's got a new lease of life thanks to Jason Momoa and his portrayal and the writing team behind that character as well. I would not have liked to have seen a Thor movie around about that time. 1991, they're saying in this article. I think it would have been a bad move. Comic book films need a stack load of cash to really be credible, because you're talking about visual effects here, making the costumes believable. That Captain America one in 1990 was ridiculous. It was like a Halloween costume, and certainly, as you said, some of the edits for that film was just totally absurd.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. I tell you what, I agree with the opening part of this article as well, where it says many people credit 2008's Iron Man for today's modern superhero movie renaissance. That's a tongue twister, but they're right when they say it's not in fact Iron Man. It was the Spider-Man films from the early 2000s for me that really sparked this off, and then also the Dark Knight trilogy from Christopher Nolan. If we're going to go further back, then I'd even say the Tim Burton Batman films, but hey, well, that's a little bit too far back. There was a gap where we got that horrendous Batman and Robin stuff, so I'm not going to say that's the one that sparked the renaissance. I would say the Spider-Man films briefly done it, then into X-Men, and then obviously we were on from there. But look, what can you say about the cameo? I mean, it was innocent. It was an innocent, harmless little cameo. As you did say, he was doing it before, and I'm glad that he allowed it. Thank God for Avi Arad for pushing that into the film, because it's something we really have just grown accustomed to seeing in just about every Marvel film. Sadly, it's now not going to be something we're going to be seeing from now on with the sad passing of Stan Lee, but hopefully that little link I'm reading in the article there is wrong, and he will indeed pop up in the cameo in Dark Phoenix, because they're saying that's something that may not have happened. But apparently he did film a cameo for Avengers 4, so that's great. We're going to get to see popping up once again at least. I'm glad they allowed it. As you did say, it was an innocent little cameo. He pulled a little girl out of the way of falling debris. In terms of that Spider-Man film, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Green Goblin, I thought it was great. It ignited my interest again in Spider-Man, which had probably fell away in the late 90s as I was getting into Star Wars, the prequels again, which turned out to be a red herring. But it reignited my interest. I remember the game on the PlayStation. It was incredible for its time. It's not my favourite Tobey Maguire one. That would probably be Spider-Man 2, which to this day is still my favourite Spider-Man film. Although, as I did say before, I actually think Tom Holland is a better Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire. But Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man films for me are still a level above yet. Maybe talked with this new one though, who knows. In terms of the horrendous 4 idea from 1991, they do say that they pitched it to Fox and they said absolutely no, comic books don't make good movies. That almost reminds me of that Decca Studios guy from the 1960s saying to the Beatles, no, we're not taking you on, guitar music's on the way out. I bet that guy was never allowed to live that down, Stephen, after he says that, because obviously the Beatles went on to be the biggest band in the world, and they still are the biggest and best and most well-known band in the world. So he was talking shite, and this Fox studio member who threw the pitch out, at that point he was right, because I'm telling you, man, it would have been a disaster. Scene 4 kicking about in probably latex and just horrendous special effects. It would have been utterly horrendous, like that Captain America film. Never seen it, did watch a Hilariosity video from Chris Stuckman though, and he tore it to shreds. I remember one action scene in a courtyard that had about 50 cuts alone, just cutting to his face, cutting to him doing a backflip, cutting back to him, and the shield, and just terrible. And then obviously you had the horrendous death scene at the end with Red Skull essentially getting pushed off a cliff. It looked like the White Cliffs of Dover. And then Captain America, who I believe looks as though he's been played by John C. Reilly, breaks the fourth wall and looks right into the camera. So that's what you would have got with these 4 films if Sam Raimi had got his way and decided to make this film. It would have been terrible. Glad it never happened. Fox were right to kick it out at the time, because as you did say, Stephen, you need a big budget for these films. You need to have amazing special effects. We did have the special effects a couple of years later with Jurassic Park and Steven Spielberg, but at that point it was just badly lacking, and it would not have been done right. It would have been like Superman 4. So rightly kicked it out. But in terms of history and 2020 hindsight, the Fox studio member was talking utter shite, because comic book movies are now the biggest and greatest thing in the film industry. I'll
tell you something though, John, every time I see that incarnation of Red Skull, it does put me in the mood for some chicken pakora. Listen, fair play to Sam Raimi for coming out with this. I think it's just one of his very many memories, I guess, of Stan Lee. And, as we said at the start of the show, the man will be sadly missed. It's going to be very, maybe early days, but it's going to be interesting to see how Marvel kick on. I know they've got a stack load of material there to work for many a year anyway, but we're going to move on, John, to a couple of trailers actually that dropped last week after we stopped our recordings. First one we're going to kick on with is Glass. This is I believe the third trailer, and it's probably it's shorter than the second trailer as I recall. I think it's only maybe about a minute long as I recall. I can't remember, but it was very it covered everything we had to, in that third trailer. This movie's going to come out next year, but I liked this trailer. I thought everything about it. It was great to see McAvoy's many characters in this movie, John. Patricia, it always cracks me up that one. But I think he's a standout in this. I think the performance, his abilities are really, shown very clearly in this very short trailer. But it's also interesting to see that we can now see, as we already predicted, that Samuel Jackson's character of Elijah Prince, aka Mr. Glass, is the architect here. He is the one that's going to be orchestrating this ensemble. He's an absolute comic book freak, this man. He sees himself as a supervillain, which he is, in this film, but this is obviously based on real life superheroes, if you like, if that makes any sense. Certainly the character of David Dunn that Bruce Willis plays that we saw in Unbreakable, he was a very, very street level superhero, and Mr. Glass was his arch nemesis. This trailer certainly does give us a good idea where this film is going to be going, and I certainly am on board now. If I wasn't for those first two trailers, I certainly am from that third trailer. Yeah,
I've been on board from day one, Stephen, with this film since it got announced. Obviously, M. Night Shyamalan is just an incredible director. He's been on a bit of a downward spiral, maybe over the last 5 or so years. He's slowly started to get his shit back together, with obviously Split, and it's great to see he's getting back to the level we expect of him getting into this film, Glass, and just seeing these three guys together, it's amazing. I've really enjoyed all the trailers. As you did say, this one was a little bit shorter. We've seen many of the things we've seen in the first trailer and the second trailer. The second trailer was actually probably my favourite. I think it's about 3 minutes long, and it really does delve into the motivation behind Elijah and just what the hell he's doing. You also hear Sarah Paulson's Dr. Ellie Staple saying that he's a changed man, he's went into himself, and that's just not true. He's locking himself up in this institution for a reason, and that reason is clear as day once you see James McAvoy's Kevin Wendell Crumb, the Beast, Patricia Dennis, whatever the hell you want to call him, entering the fray with obviously David Dunn. He is looking to, for me anyway, it's clear as mud, I may be wrong though, he's looking to enter into a partnership with Wendell Crumb, use his sheer athleticism and physical strength to wreak utter chaos, because he's more like a Joker character, Elijah Price, aka Mr. Glass. He is the more methodical, mental cerebral villain. He's obviously Mr. Glass, he can't walk about, he's a condition where his bones are very, very weak, fragile, so he can't do the heavy lifting, so he's going to utilise the likes of the Beast to obviously push forward his agenda. What that agenda is remains unclear at this moment, but obviously he's going to want to try and take over the world in some way. That's just what supervillains do, they want to do that. And I really cannot wait to see the film, man. Just the cast coming together here is incredible. It's Samuel L., Bruce Willis, we said before, Stephen. It's quite a few films they've now starred in together. Sarah Paulson, great actress, and obviously Anya Taylor-Joy too, who's a fantastic young actress. So the trailers are incredible. They're really pushing the tension. They're pushing the amazing visuals. These three primary protagonists, and just the different characters that they are. David Dunn saying, "Well, I take it you're going to let me go now and I'll be off." And you're seeing him. He's the more sane, human level, as you did say, street level guy. He's the good guy. And then you've got the absolute deranged figure of James McAvoy's Kevin Wendell Crumb, and you've seen those flashes of light in them changing personas and accents. You've got the more reserved and cerebral figure of Mr. Glass. And I can't wait to see this film coming out. It's going to be, I think, a culmination of the 3 films. This is going to be a trilogy. Obviously, Unbreakable, Split, and now Glass. And I cannot bloody wait to see it, Stephen. It's been a tremendous promotional campaign. It's really whetted my appetite. And just looking at that bloody poster as well, it looks absolutely amazing. So I cannot wait to see this goddamn film. and obviously coming out next year in January 2019. Not got long to go.
Yeah, 18th of January 2019, certainly in the US that is. I don't know if
Hopefully
it's got a UK release, I'm sure it will, John. But we're going to move on to our second trailer and our last trailer of the show. This dropped, I think it was the same day actually as the Glass trailer came out. Is the second trailer, I believe, of Dumbo,
Yes.
the Tim Burton Dumbo that is. We talked about the teaser trailer a few months ago, John. Certainly enjoyed the teaser trailer. I felt that first trailer was very melancholy, certainly tugging at the heartstrings. This one got a little bit more action in it. That picture there of Dumbo and the clown, that's so sad to see, isn't it, the clown makeup. And then he does that little stumble as well, and the crowd laugh. It just kind of tugs at the heartstrings, but it's a beloved character that we know from years and years ago in the original animated. And like Disney, like they're doing at the moment, they are certainly going through their old films, their old animated films, and bring them to live action. This certainly looks a winner as well, John.
Yes, as that song does go, nobody does it better, as Partridge would say. And Disney really know how to make live action remakes of classic cartoons. They're obviously the studio, the company synonymous with these classic cartoons from back in the day. I never actually seen the original Dumbo, I'm pretty sure I didn't. I know the character well though, maybe I did, probably did when I was a young boy. But this film looks incredible as well, it really does. It's tugging on the emotional heartstrings. You look at his little face and it's just hard not to connect with him. He has an incredibly adorable little face, and just the story of him as well. He's obviously orphaned, his mother's taken away in this second trailer. You see her getting whisked off. Colin Farrell's character sends her away somewhere, I don't know where. Maybe it wasn't Colin Farrell's character, maybe it was Danny DeVito's character, I don't know. But she's whisked away and he's left to obviously fend for himself. The little girl is trying her best to make him feel at home. I think you hear her saying at the start of the trailer, we're all family here, even the smallest of us. And visually it's just absolutely stunning. It's got all of the characteristics of a Tim Burton film. It's just reeks of his touch. It's got darkness, but at the same time you've got the human side of the character. Even though it's an elephant, that sounds incredibly stupid to say the human side, but you connect with it. There's empathy with what it's going through. And as you said, that stumble moment, just seeing him flying for briefly in the little hay area that he's obviously sectioned off, and seeing him connecting with the young children. Just there is more action in this trailer as well. We see Colin Farrell getting up a bloody bridge by the looks of it, and it's whisking over a cityscape, and it looks incredible, it looks epic, looks like a faithful readaptation of the classic cartoon. And which incidentally I can't remember, so I don't know if it is a faithful readaptation, but it looks stunning. The CG is incredible, and apparently there's been a lot of people crying at this one as well, Stephen.
Yeah.
As it says, the new Dumbo trailer will make you sob uncontrollably. So it did make me sob uncontrollably, but it's not an exaggeration. I can understand why people are connecting with this. As you said, much beloved character.
I think the music as well, John.
The music's incredible, yeah.
That's
an amazing song.
That just title song, I think it's going to probably, be quite...
yeah, I can see that.
I think that's going to be its theme, because it's certainly, I think it was in the first trailer as well, and it's quite a haunting ballad. I'm not sure who the artist was, but the voice in that song was absolutely amazing, John. But this doesn't come out till 20. I think it's certainly mid-March. I think it is. Yeah. This doesn't come out. It's still in post-production at this stage, but for these early signs, this film is going to be a big hit with families all over the world. Certainly, when you look at that final shot as well, Stephen, of him going up in the podium, it's very thrilling. Is he going to do it? Is he going to fly? Of course he is. We know he is, but still amazing setup, and just a shot of the light panning down on him. Yeah, he's been a figure of ridicule, and this is his moment to shine. So I cannot wait to see this bloody film as well. I'm going through all of these remakes, Disney remakes. Cinderella was incredible. Beauty and the Beast. Obviously, The Lion King's coming out, Aladdin, and now Dumbo. So the Jungle Book as well, John. Jungle Book as well, that was it was a Rudyard Kipling, adaptation, but Disney certainly owned that movie, certainly the animation. But this just brings us to our final part of the show now, John. This is the poll of the week. Yes. It's just a little brief conversation we'll have in regards to our poll, which went up last week, and it got 356 votes. We'd just like to thank everyone who participated in this poll. And this question was simple: which of these 4 Denzel Washington Oscar-nominated performances is his best? And coming in first is Glory with 16%, Malcolm X with 33%, Training Day, which won it, with 43%, and Flight with 8%. Now, I went with Malcolm X. I thought that was a no-brainer. That's just my opinion. I thought Malcolm X would run away with this. A lot of people, big fan of Glory as well.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, only got 16%. But that's that's the thing when you pick 4 really good films. Certainly from Denzel Washington's CV, it's really difficult just to pick 4. We do get a lot of responses why we left certain ones out. And as you know, Twitter only give us the 4 options. We might do another one further down the line with another 4 films, but then other people say why they would not include Training Day, Malcolm X, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
You can never win, but we'd like to thank, it was a great response, 356 votes for this. And as I said, Training Day, which is it's probably one of my favourite Denzel Washington movies, but personally I think Malcolm X is probably my favourite one.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to argue against any of them winning, really, Stephen. As you did say, such is the calibre of a man's filmography. You can go back and pick out just about any film, and it's a stunning performance. The guy doesn't put in a bad performance. And in terms of his Oscar-nominated performances, you've also got The Hurricane, as you did say.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised to see Flight being a bit of a lame duck. I would have thought it would have got a few more. The film itself wasn't outstanding by any means, but certainly Denzel's performance, it really propelled that film up to a higher standard than it ought to have been. He's just an incredible actor. He was amazing in that. He's obviously a troubled pilot who tried to, he was found to have high levels of cocaine in his system when he was flying. Obviously had a bit of a emergency, saved the day, and then he was put through the rigmarole of having to explain his actions and stuff like that and how he went through it, much like Sully. Obviously this isn't a real story. He was flipping the flight and he inverted the plane. But Training Day, and that was just a stunning film as well. That was one of his more notable films in terms of, when you think of Denzel, you think of Training Day right away. Well, certainly I do. Yep. 2001 crime thriller, obviously. He was absolutely incredible in that. He's obviously just a figure of just tremendous power, but he's also coolness and grace personified. And he just adds an air of ambiguity and just complexity to that character, which is just absolutely classic Denzel. Malcolm X, just a stunning film too. Obviously a biographical story of Malcolm X. Who would have thought it? Just an amazing performance. Incredibly, really became that character. It was a stunning performance. I was actually found myself getting emotional when he gets shot, obviously, in the film. It's just a tragic and a very inspirational figure, Malcolm X. Obviously the yin to the yang of Martin Luther King. He had different views and ideologies on how to solve the civil rights issue, and he just personified that character as well. Glory, again, surprised that it got so little votes. I thought that was a stunning performance as well. Obviously a Civil War film. He's part of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry in that film, and it's just an incredible reenactment of that story, and he was utterly stunning. That was his first Oscar nomination, and I believe his first Oscar win, so just a stunning performance in that as well. So, but again, you can go through a whole host of the films that he's been in, even in Oscar nominated films. The Hurricane was a stunning performance too. Yeah. Couple of inaccuracies in terms of actual story, but you can't argue with the performance of Denzel on that.
John Hannah's accent was a bit of an inaccuracy, I know, John.
But a stunning performance, Stephen. Yeah. You can't argue with any of the films.
Yeah. And if you go onto our Twitter feed at Movie Burners, you will see our latest movie poll. Please feel free to vote on that. But that just wraps up this week's show, John, of the Movie Burner News. Certainly a packed show this week. We will certainly be back next week with another edition of Movie Burner News, but we will be back tomorrow with the Movie Burner blog rundown.
Remember, guys, if you enjoyed that latest episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerintertainment.org. Until next time, goodbye.